Hello, I'm Congressman Tim Scott, here to talk about the success and the victory of America through the eyes and through the spectrum of Black history. We have an opportunity for the next few minutes to hear about Black history firsts. I believe it's a greater part of the American story. America is a country that was built on breaking barriers, those who did it first. Please listen up for the next few minutes as my staff and Congressman Lewis talks about breaking barriers.
In 1916, Garrett Morgan made headlines when his gas mask was used to save 32 men during an underground explosion in Lake Erie. In fact, this son of former slaves was pretty good at inventing things. Some of his inventions included the traffic signal and the safety hood, just to name a few. Pretty impressive for a man whose education never made it beyond elementary school, wouldn't you think?
Black Leonardo by Time magazine in 1941, George Washington Carver is most known for his contributions to agriculture. Born a slave, Mr. Carver rose to become one of the world's most respected scientists. In 1943, President Roosevelt named the George Washington Carver National Monument, the first national monument bestowed on an African American and the first to honor someone other than a president.
Althea Gibson turned the tennis court into a personal stage for her talent and flair. Sometimes referred to as the Jackie Robinson of tennis, Althea broke through the color barrier, becoming the first African American to win both Wimbledon and the US Open.
Yes, but did you know in 1963 the world embraced another trailblazer on the court? The legendary Arthur Ashe became the first black player ever chosen to represent the United States in the Davis Cup, and the first black man to win singles at Wimbledon, the US Open, and the Australian Open.
At a time when discrimination plagued our society, Arthur and Althea became pioneers whose experiences and accomplishments paved the way for future greats.
We celebrate their accomplishments as African Americans and their contributions as great Americans.
The man who invented the first blood plasma bank was a Dr. Charles Drew. Not only was he responsible for the miracle of a life-saving blood transfusion, but he was also the first director of the American Red Cross Blood Bank. Oh, and yeah, he was black. Who was he exactly? He was an American.
In 1961, Ernie Davis was the first African American to win the Heisman Trophy. In South Carolina, we know our football, and he was one of the best.
Since Ernie won the nation's most coveted collegiate award, 28 African Americans have followed, including this year's winner, Robert Griffith III.
Ernie was also MVP of the 1960 Cotton Bowl and the 1961 Liberty Bowl. He was the first pick in the 1962 NFL Draft, but unfortunately never played in the NFL and died from leukemia in 1963.
We remember Mr. Davis as a great man whose life was cut way too short, but we won't forget him.
Congressman and fellow South Carolinian Joseph Rainey was the first African American directly elected to the United States Congress. He was born into slavery and eventually followed in his father's footsteps to become a barber. After fleeing with his family to Bermuda during the Civil War, Rainey returned to South Carolina and in 1870 was elected to the United States House of Representatives. He served 4 consecutive terms, the longest-serving African American until the 1950s. Congressman Rainey, I and South Carolina thank you for your service and your inspiration.
In 1944, when I was only 4 years old, my father, who had saved $300, bought 110 acres of land. On this farm, we raised a lot of cotton and corn, peanuts, hogs, cows, and chickens. I got involved in the civil rights movement as a student, the sit-ins, the marches. But I became the first person to be beaten on the Ebbet Pettus Bridge on March 7, 1965, for the right to vote, for the right to participate in the democratic process. And now I serve as a member of the United States House of Representatives.
I'd like to thank my staff and Congressman John Lewis for participating in celebrating Black History Month as a part of the greater story of America's history.